Welcome to Waypoint. I'm glad you're here. My name is Blair. We're going to do something different today. We've done this only 2 times in the history of Waypoint. If you're a visitor here, you're about to get some really good stuff. It's going to be helpful for you. There'll be a big ask that's involved. That's not for you. But I'm glad you're here, and I hope you'll engage with us. I want to tell you about a rut that Waypoint's been in for 4 years. So in 2019, we were bursting at the seams with the use of our building. Every space was being used for multiple purposes in multiple ways on a regular basis, and we actually came up with a plan at that time, towards the end of 2019, for an addition on the flat. The youth were asking for more space. Hey, we need some more space. And we thought we would double the size of the flat. We would put some space down below there for an office in the future. When we moved our offices from over here over to there, then we could give the daycare some room to expand. So it was all looked great. We found a contractor. And in early 2020, we were about to sign a contract to build that building. And COVID hit. And we thought, maybe we shouldn't spend a lot of money right now. And we just decided to hit the pause button. We had no idea how things would go. But in 2020, things got messy. So the second quarter of 2020, we were forced to close. Our giving took a dive. And we started responding. So we stopped spending money. As a staff, we froze all spending. We started applying for grants. We started applying for any assistance that we could apply for. We let our youth group keep meeting. We felt like that was important, that they would still have a space to engage with each other. Our daycare was still open. People still needed to kind of go back to work. And so we were finding our way through. By the third quarter and the fourth quarter, our giving had stabilized, but we were still being pretty tight with money. We weren't spending it ourselves. Some of the assistance had come through. We actually got a few grants to upgrade some of the equipment in this room because we were live streaming things that we had never done before, and we didn't have that equipment, and so we had done all of that kind of stuff. It didn't mean that all of our giving stopped. In 2020, Waypoint gave $61,000 through our Christmas offering into our community. In 2021, we gave $100,000. So that kind of stuff was still going on. That's all really important to us. I'm talking about the internal budget that we would use at Waypoint. And we got to the end of 2020, and we realized that because our giving had stabilized and we had been really diligent in not spending money, we had started to accumulate a pretty good chunk of savings. And we realized that, you know what? God does not resource things for no reason. There has to be a purpose for this. And so we started kind of trying to pay attention to what that might be. And we thought we found it. We thought we found it because the RVs came back in the middle of 2020, but they went crazy in 21. They started employing everybody with a pulse. Everybody from the factories went to those places. People from our daycare went to the RVs. People from our daycare went to the factories. And we had 2 locations at that time. We had a location in Bristol. We had a location here. And we could not keep staff. It had turned into kind of a nightmare situation. Lots of people still wanted daycare, but we could not find people, and we made a very difficult decision at that point to consolidate. We brought that second site back here. And when we did that, we went back to that sense of feeling like we were just bursting at every seam that we could find. And we thought, this is what we're going to do. We have the idea, the perfect idea. We're going to put on an addition that adds some space for our daycare, solves the issue that our youth group cares about, and this will be great. Except in 2021, the RVs started building buildings like they didn't have enough for the rest of the, everywhere you looked, they were putting up a building, And we couldn't find a single engineer or contractor who would return our call for a year. I'm not joking. Emails, phone calls, nothing. There was no response back, and it felt like we were not getting anywhere. In fact, Mitchell at one point said, "I don't believe we're ever going to build this building." And he was only saying out loud what a lot of people felt. Now, here's one thing that I would like to offer to those of you who find yourself in a protracted rut, a rut that's gone on for a while, that you don't know where the end of it is, and it's very difficult and it's hard. Here's something I think that you could do. I think you should collect experiences with God over time and then revisit them in the moments where you wonder what's going on. See, when you collect experiences from God, what you begin to realize is that His timing is flawless. He knows when to act, why to act, how to act. And when you can remember His faithfulness, you can find a way in the midst of a rut that's going on for longer than you think it should go on to still find a sense of peace. You can have peace of mind even though the rut doesn't call for it, because you know that you can trust God. And you have this reservoir of knowledge to look back on and go, you know what? I know where we're at right now doesn't feel good, but I also know God doesn't miss on His timing. It's not just that God doesn't miss on His timing. He will not be influenced by our impatience. He knows exactly what to do, when to do it. What I want to tell you is that in the midst of our rut, we had that to call back on to give us a sense of comfort. I've had the privilege of sitting in the front row and watching God do this on multiple occasions, and I want to tell you about a few of those so that you can understand our history with some of this. So in 2009, Waypoint had about 60 people attending. We were meeting in a Boys and Girls Club over in Middlebury, and the and the leaders and the people started talking about buying land, which I thought was the worst idea I had ever heard. Like, what were we going to do with land? There's 60 of us. We even if we owned it, we could just say we're the proud owners of dirt, but what's the point? We didn't have the money to buy the land, let alone do anything with it once we got it. But they were all fired up about it, and I was trying to discourage it as much as possible. I just think this is not a good idea. Let's not keep talking about this. I knew how much land was going for at the time per acre, and we didn't have that. I knew that. So I got a call in the fall of 2009. It was a local foundation, and yeah, that was the type of phone I had back then. It was cutting edge at the time. Now, actually, I know the iPhones came out in 2007, but I don't want anything to do with those at that point. So this is what I got a phone call on, and it was a foundation that said, "Hey, it's our understanding you're wanting to get some land." And I was like, "Not really. I mean, eventually we'll get land, but no, that's really not on the agenda right now. That's not something that we can afford to do or anything like that." And they had been aware that Waypoint had gone out and gotten a surveyor on this piece of property that we're sitting on right now to survey out a 20-acre chunk of that land. And they said, "Hey, we're aware of this, and we're willing to gift you that 20 acres. Like, we'll find a way to finance it, and you can have that 20 acres of land." What? Like, why? I mean, I wanted to know if there were strings attached. Like, this was so weird and odd. And they said, "No, we're just looking for a way to bless the ministry." And, you know, I'd been an advocate that we were not in a place to go looking for the land, and here was God kind of running me over, and I felt like maybe I should accept the offer, right? So I said, "Okay, that's fine, let's do this." I told the church, everybody got excited about it. were working on plans for the closing of that property when I got a second phone call from them in the October 2009. And they said, hey, this really complicates things to do the survey to break off 20 acres. Why aren't you just going for the 36 and a half acres? I said, I wasn't going for 20 acres. Why would I think of going for 36 and a half acres? That it's not even on the radar. What are you asking me? And they said, we're asking, what would you do with it if you had it? And I gave them some examples that I thought, down the road in the future, Waypoint could probably use that kind of property for some very specific reasons. And on that phone call, they said, we're changing our arrangement with you. No longer will it be 20 acres. We'll help you purchase the 36 and a half acres. You have to raise $10,000, which, by the way, was the fastest I've ever raised $10,000, right? It was a simple phone call. The person on the other end was just as fired up as I was. And here's what I want you to understand. At the time, land was going for around $8,000 to $10,000 an acre, and we paid $274 per acre for this property that we're sitting on. After I had told everybody it was a crazy idea. Well, what happens when you have land that's paid for? Crazy people start talking about put a building on it. There were now 70 of us. 70 people wanted to build a building. And I was like, this is the worst idea I've ever heard. This is not a good idea. I don't know what we're doing here. We couldn't afford to buy the land. We can't afford to put a building on the property. It's a distraction. We shouldn't be doing this. Let's not talk about the building. But we put a team together. They had a set of plans designed. They took it to some contractors. They got a bid, and we got the price back. It was $3.2 million for that building. It was a beautiful building, no doubt about it. We found that out late 2010, early 2011, in that range. And in February 2011, I remember doing a long announcement period where I just looked at our church and said, hey, I know there's been a lot of buzz about a building, but we're not building. And the Axis team at the time set some triggers. We said, okay, if we get to X amount of attendance, we'll revisit the building. If we get to X amount of budget, we'll revisit the building. If we have, and then we set the crazy one. And if something crazy happens, we'll revisit the building. We had to leave the door open, right? Something crazy happened. Crazy happened in the summer of 2011. I got a phone call from somebody, and they said, hey, there's a couple of us here at Waypoint that we feel like God's laid on our heart to give to the building fund, which I thought was pretty funny because we didn't have a building fund, and I think I pointed that out. That's my gift at raising money. We don't even have one of those. I don't know what you're giving to, right? And the suggestion was, well, why don't you make one? Yeah, probably should have thought of that. Okay, we can make something for that. And then they told me, we're giving $430,000 towards that project. I was stunned. I couldn't believe that God was doing this. I think at that moment, I made an internal commitment to answer every phone call in the future, like no matter what time it happened. Like, I'm taking these calls. I don't know what's going on, but this is crazy. Then they said on the phone call, maybe it's time that we should look at building again. And look, I was incredibly blown away by the amount of generosity. Like, that was insane to me. But I pointed out that $3.2 million versus $430,000, they're not even in the same park. They're not in the same place. But I'll always remember this. This is what was said next. Maybe you should try to find a building we can build for the money we do have, which I hadn't thought of. And I was like, maybe I will. Maybe I'll try, right? It never had crossed my mind. And so we started looking And if you've ever wondered, by the way, if you've ever wondered why we built a big rectangle building that looks like a barn in the middle of a field, it's because this is the kind of building we could almost afford. Almost. The budget came back at $800,000 to build this project. And we had 430. And so for the first time, the Access team approved a capital campaign. And I did the research. They said, based on the number of people that you have, you could expect over 2 years about $150,000 to be given to this project. We had, for that capital campaign, $270,000 committed to the project. It was way more than anybody would have thought could have happened. We'd already had people give big gifts. There was no thought that anything like that could happen again, and here we were. Now we're close, except the one problem is that $270,000 or so is going to come in over 2 years. And so I decided that I would make a phone call. I want to tell you why. Because all the way up to this point, I had found myself dragging my feet and saying, this stuff is not possible, this stuff is not possible, we're wasting our time, this is not smart or wise for us to do. And God seemed to keep pushing past me, and I decided maybe it was time to be on the crazy train instead of in front of it. So I called the foundation that helped us purchase the land, and I made this ask. I said, would you be willing to give us a $300,000 loan at 0% interest for 5 years? At the end of 5 years, we will have paid off as much as we can. At the end of that 5 years, if it's not paid off, then we'll get a loan and we'll take care of you, but you'll be able to get your money back to fund these other things that you do in the community, and this would really help us. And they said, well, give us some time to think about it. And that took 24 hours. In 24 hours' time, they called me back, and they said, we've made a decision. We're going to give you the $300,000 loan, and we're also going to give you $30,000 as a gift. So if you're adding stuff up right now, we're now sitting on $760,000 in cash, $270,000 in commitment, which ended up being a great thing because the building did not cost $800,000, it cost $1 million. Like that happened as kind of we went through and made changes and adjustments and all that kind of stuff. But over that course, that period of time, that was taken care of. We actually started this building in 2012. And in December of 2012, we quietly moved in. We tried to kind of break it in, figure out what was going to go on, what we needed to do. And in February of 2013, we opened this to the public. Now, at that time, we had this room, the lookout hall, and those 2 kids' classrooms finished. That's it. That's all we had. And what happened was unexpected. We exploded. We had people coming out of the woodwork. That one big kid's classroom over there, we had 25 kids going in there from ages 5 to kindergarten. I found a picture that helps you understand what that room felt like. Yeah. We had parents going, I don't know what's going on in there, but I'm not taking my kid in there. And they were bringing him in here. And I was like, it's a jungle in there, but if they survive, they'll be stronger for it. Go ahead, fit them in. But it was like that. Okay? So that happened fast. And in early 2013, February, we knew we needed another kids' room. In early February 2013, our parking lot started to fail. The person who had done it did not do a good job, would not stand behind it. I don't know if you've ever made a $50,000 mistake, but I lost $50,000 of the church's money on a parking lot that couldn't be redeemed. And here we were, getting into the end of February, where we needed a kids' room, we needed to fix our parking lot. We were about to start making payments on a $300,000 loan, and people were still making payments on their commitment. I saw no sources to get out of that predicament. Like I felt like we were buried in, and it was going to be pretty rough. In late February 23, I took a phone call from the foundation that felt like, again, it was like we were going in the wrong direction. They called and said, the IRS is not going to allow us to give you a 0% loan. It's going to have to be some percentage for this to be not a problem for us. It's 2%. Again, still incredible. It's great. I was still, grateful that was happening. But it was just another chink of, here's more drain. Here's more drain on the cash. And we're going to be in a bind here, and this is difficult. And then they said, so you're going to need to start making this amount of payment on $80,000. And at that point, I was very confused. And I said, okay, we owe you $300. Is there a different interest rate on the $220? And what's the payment going to be on that? And on that phone call, he said, oh, I forgot to tell you. We've decided to move $220,000 to gift status. You don't have to pay that back any longer. I remember that. I remember being at a place where I thought, there is no way out of this hole, and it's getting worse. And God's timing was flawless. We had enough money to make payments on $300,000, but we didn't have to make payments on $300,000. So we went out and got a $150,000 line of credit. For $50,000, the Waypoint Church community finished that kids' room. We did all the work. I think we hired an electrician, but we did everything else. We then spent $100,000 that summer to fix our parking lot, and we still owed less money than we did at the beginning of that year. It was unbelievable. I skipped a slide, but I want to go back to it. We put this slide up when we put in the land. I want you to see this verse because I felt like we've lived this verse over and over. So if you could bring up Ephesians 3:20 and 21 for everybody, it would be great. Now to him who is able to do immeasurably more than all we ask or imagine, according to his power that is at work within us, to him be glory in the church and in Jesus Christ through all generations, forever and ever. Amen. We had that rock commission when we got the land, and I felt the same way at the end of 2013. There's no way that should have happened. And yet God had kind of dug us out of a hole. By 2014, by mid-2014, we had paid off our line of credit. We were still making payments on the mortgage, but we didn't feel compelled to pay it off quickly. It was 2%. And you would think this would be over. No, there's more. So I was at a volleyball open gym in the summer of 2014 when I got another phone call. And there was a family in the church that has always felt a strong burden for reaching young people. And we had a space that was unfinished, the mezzanine over here that was unfinished, that was a someday project. Someday we're going to get to that. We're finishing other projects through cash. I haven't told you about all of those. God was blessing us in a lot of different ways. On a regular basis, we were seeing his hand move. It was pretty amazing. But this other project, we knew it was going to be costly. And we just put it off for a little while. And they called and said, look, we really feel burdened to get this going. And on that phone call, they committed $50,000 towards that project. We went out that summer and found an architect. We had plans drawn up. We went and got a price for it, and we knew, because it was going to be a space for our teens, that it had to have a lot of technology in it. We had a lot of stuff up there. It was $300,000 for that little space. And we decided, the Access team decided that year, around March of 2015, we would do another capital campaign to try to raise the money to get that. But somebody said to me, Blair, maybe, just maybe, you should say something at the end of 2014, because there may be people who are giving to that for tax reasons that it would benefit them if they knew about this. So November 2014, I got up there and I told people about the $50,000 phone call. I told them about the plans that we drew up. I told them about the purpose we had for that space, about how it would make a significant difference in our teen ministry and how we were excited about that. I told them that we were eventually going to raise money in March of 2015. When I left church that Sunday, I had $200,000 in commitments to that project. We started that project 3 months before we did the capital campaign for that project. We were hoping to get it done by fall. It was done by summer. It's been that kind of thing over and over and over again, where the timing of God seemed to just be barreling over us, and we were running to keep up. And then 2021 and 2022 came, and we had ideas and thoughts, and years were going by. It was a rut that we didn't fully understand. We knew the daycare 21, the issues with the daycare employment continued. Like we could not keep staff, and we actually had to resize our daycare. We let kids leave until we got down to the size that we could actually staff. And when that happened, we realized that the building that we had planned wasn't needed. And so we went back to the original drawing board and we said, hey, what if we tried to solve this problem that the youth have? Like they're really wanting to find a space for the student ministries to have 2 different meeting rooms so that they could meet at the same time. It would cut down on parents traveling so much. They would just be one drop-off, one pickup. And so we started making those kind of plans, and we drew up like this incredible idea on paper. That was it. Couldn't get anybody to do anything with it. Until the end of 2022, we finally found a contractor who was willing to do that. And they priced it out and gave us a price at the end of 2022. Our dream building was $3.2 million. We did not have that kind of cash. The construction costs, we knew had inflated. We had no idea that they had gone up that much. They had gone up a lot. And we have become accustomed to being debt-free, which, by the way, happened to us, I think it was either 2014 or 2015, Christmas Eve really. I remember it was on December 23rd. We got a call from the foundation. I think it was 2014. And they said, we don't want you to make payments anymore. We're tired of getting those. We're just going to forgive the rest. And we've been debt-free ever since. And so we have been debt-free for a while. We like the freedom that it gives us to act on things that we see that are necessary, and so that we're not restricted by finances. We're restricted by, is this the right thing for us to do? But this building was so far over our head, we didn't know what we could do. Or 2023 came, and we're back at the drawing board. Like, God, we know you've resourced something. We can't seem to find it. And this is feeling pretty stalled out, not really sure what to do. And probably in the March area, I don't know, somewhere in there, the staff was brainstorming, and the thought that came back to me was from that original conversation I had years ago. Why don't you try to build something that would work with the money that we do have? And we were having that kind of conversation in a staff meeting. Like, hey, our needs are pretty clear. We know what we've got to try to solve, but I don't know how we get there. And it doesn't seem like there's a path forward. We know God has resourced us with this much money. Here we're at. What do we do? And it was in that meeting that Nick came up with a creative idea that none of us had considered before. He flip-flopped everything. We were looking at building a meeting space like this. And when you do that, all the sound and electronics and all the equipment that goes in that increases that cost of that room so quickly, it's unbelievable. But we already had a room that had all of that stuff. And we thought, what if we instead built something that we could use, and then we let this just stay what it was? And we took that idea out to a contractor and just asked for a gut shot bid. Like it was just a rough, can you tell us if we're any, and it was close. Like it was in a range that we thought this might be doable. By 2023, things were starting to slow down. An engineer returned our phone call, designed some plans. We took those out to contractors this summer, and we got a price back that was in the range of us to be able to do something. I want to show you the plans that were at least developed, okay? So on the screen, I'm going to show you a big building that has a gymnasium. So we realized that if we took and we just built a big gymnasium, we don't need all the crazy stuff, electronics, everything to go in there. We could move all the gym activities out of this place into that, and it could be used for countless numbers of things. On the back side of that, we have some unfinished space. We realized with Waypoint, when we built the original building, we built in space that we didn't know exactly what we were going to use it for, and God revealed over time every ounce of this building's been used for something. So we said, let's put some unfinished space there. We have classrooms down this little hallway. That's our existing building over there. There's only going to be a 30-foot connection. And then this hallway comes out. There's classrooms in there. The one space that we're asked for on a regular basis is classroom space, and we turn it down because we don't have it. Our daycare takes up these rooms every day of the week on a regular basis, and we've never been able to offer these kind of classes. So on the second story, you can go to the next slide if you would. At the back of that unfinished space, there's a future. We're going to be able to put our office space over there. That's down the road sometime. And when we do that, then the space over here can turn into the daycare with like a preschool room. All of that's future. It's just down the road. This took 3 to 4 years to figure out. It felt like a terrible rut in the process. What we didn't realize was that the rut was a waiting room for God to reveal what He really wanted from us. And the project is a fraction of what we had before, because it's a different space. It's just cheaper space to build. There's no electronics in it, anything like that. We're calling this our landmark project. The reason we're using that term for the project is landmark actually has 2 definitions. A landmark is a place on a map that people use to adjust their course. And our mission is to be a place where people adjust their course toward Christ. And we think this space is going to give us a chance to actually help a lot of people adjust their course. The uses that we have, I'm going to tell you about in a minute, for all of that space is pretty incredible. But the second use of landmark is that it's a turning point. That when you cross that place, you're never the same again. And this, I think, is probably the bigger definition of what's going to happen with this space and Waypoint. It's literally going to change so much that will not be the same after we build this project. What's going to happen? Well, first, our teen ministry. It's going to significantly impact them. I asked Austin and Mitchell to just do a little video. I want you to see what they have to say about this, and then I'll say some things too. Watch this.
Hey Waypoint, Mitchell and Austin here with Waypoint Student Ministries, and we are so excited for the Landmark Project for a lot of reasons.
Yeah, one thing we realized as we've been doing this for a while is space is going to be a ceiling for us with the students. And so what we're most excited for with this project is not just the pickleball courts and the volleyball and basketball courts, but the opportunity that we have to now be flexible on a Wednesday night to meet at the same time, because we've got a couple different places we can do that, can spread things out, we can work around sports schedules and all the stuff going on in the lives of students. So we're super excited for that, and to see how this can really not just be a landmark in our community, but in our ministry specifically as well.
So we hope you decide to partner with us. Let's pull this off. Let's do this.
I said, hey, I think space could be a lid, but we could take the lid off. Over the years, one of our deep commitments has been to try to reach people who are young. We've done that in our student ministry. We've done our kids ministry. It's always been a focus, and it will be one of the things that changes that ministry permanently. It will never be the same. It'll also change our weekend, believe it or not, our children's ministry. They've never had access to a gym on the weekend to let kids come and have a good time after they do a lesson. They're going to have access to that. The daycare is going to keep using it. That's going to be normal usage. We've got that. But it will change things for our children's ministry to have that kind of impact. The classrooms alone in that space will change our ability to connect with our community. People are looking for those kind of rooms. We just haven't been able to offer them for a long period of time, and the chance to do that is exciting to us. We're thrilled about that. But here's a fourth idea that's kind of turned into... I spent an hour last week talking with the AD of Bethel College. He runs sports facilities. He gets calls all the time from people who are looking for sports facilities, and I showed him what we were trying to build. I said, hey, this is what we're looking to do. It has the ability to have basketball, volleyball, and pickleball. It's going to have all of those kind of courts in it. What do you think we could do with this space? And he got fired up. He talked to me for an hour about this. We asked him to record a little something. It's only 24 seconds long, but I want you to catch a few things that he has to say. Watch this.
This is Tony and Natalie. I'm excited to talk about the new building here at Waypoint, the opportunities this will have for our youth and in the community to bring in folks that may normally not be here. And it's exciting to see how those relationships will form and how God will use this space to continue not just to grow Waypoint, but to grow the kingdom. And the opportunities will be endless, and this is a great opportunity just to see how this will work here in the community.
Yeah, he in that hour with me was convinced that we could keep that space packed from 6 a.m. to 10 p.m., that our biggest problem would be how we would manage it, and that we would see people who we would never see any other way, because sports is something that you can invite people to even when they're not interested in church. And he's like, this is something that I could get involved with and be excited about. And so we have that. It's not the reason that we're building this, but we build things for multiple purposes, and we're looking at this going, wow, this could be an incredible space. In fact, he's so fired up, he wants me to finish the unfinished space in the back of that, which he's convinced if we had, he could keep all of that space used with sports stuff. So exciting opportunity to connect with kids and adults in a way that they're actually willing to connect through sports. The last thing that could be a landmark. The possibility exists that if we have a gym that's built to be a gym, that's working as a gym, that we could convert this space to just be an auditorium that works as an auditorium, where we would have a carpeted floor, nice chairs, the basketball hoops are out, and it's designed to be that. Time will tell. Like, I'm sure there'll be lots of discussions when we get to that, exactly what this looks like and how we would do it, but it's a possibility, and it really would change everything. And so that's why we're looking at this project as a landmark project. I think everything could be different. Now, here's the thing. We're close. When we got this project bid out, we found out that we're looking at $1.2 million for the project. That is a finished shell and a completed gym, okay? But there's good news. We already have $1 million set aside to go towards that project. So what we're trying to find a way to raise is $200,000. If we were able to raise $200,000, then we do that whole thing from cash. If by chance we raise more than that, if we raise $400,000, then we would have decisions to make about what to do with this room. Do we convert it? How do we convert it? What do we do in here? And all of that sort of thing. If more came in than that, if it was in the 1.5 to 1. Or if it came into $500,000 to $600,000, we would finish all the classrooms too. The whole thing. Just none of the future stuff. That is down the road. It's not needed immediately. We probably wouldn't tackle any of that kind of stuff. That's where we're at. And so for the third time in Waypoint's history, we're asking for people to consider joining us in a capital campaign. It'll last through the end of this year and next year. That's all it's going to go. We're asking people to consider how much you might be able to give over and above to go towards a project like this. There's one more thing that you should know that's kind of fun. I learned on Friday that somebody was willing to be a lead donor in this project, and they've already offered a $50,000 dollar-for-dollar match for the first $50,000 that are given. So if we have $50,000 given, they'll match it, and we'll be at $100,000. So that's already in place, and we're already a quarter of the way there. If we could just raise 50, we could get half of the way there. So that's where we're at. And again, the reason, the purpose that's driving us is this could change everything for our ministry. It could change everything for our youth. It could change the stuff that we do with our children's ministry on the weekend. It's going to change and give us an opportunity to do some stuff with classrooms we haven't been able to ever do, really. And then a sports ministry that we're starting to dream about that would have a major impact. So here's what's going to happen. Yeah, band, you can come forward. I think we have time. That's good. Out in the lookout hall, we're going to set up some boards so that you can actually don't take pictures of these and say this is absolutely what you have to build. It's flexible, all right? We've already made a change to one of the roof lines. There's going to be some adjustments here and there, but it's close. It's pretty close, and you can get an idea up close of what we're doing and how we're doing it. There's commitment cards out there. If you want to take some time to pray about it, I think that makes a lot of sense. And over the next few weeks, we're going to be taking those commitments. If you just want to drop them in the offering box, then we'll figure out where we're at and how far we're going to go. But I hope you'll consider joining us because I think we're at a place where we're coming out of that rut, and I'd love to see what God has to do with this. Yeah, it's pretty fun. Can I pray with us before they sing? God, I just want to express a grateful heart. I've seen you work so many times in ways that were hard to understand. They just seem to come out of the blue. This time it's been a little more difficult. And yet all of that rut caused us to finally come up with an idea that was better than what we had ever dreamed of. Gets us everything that we want, but in a price range that makes sense. So I'm grateful. I'm grateful for the struggle. And I just ask as we seek you, that you would speak to each one of us about what you want us to do, how you want us to participate, and that this would be about you and not us. We want to see your kingdom impacted, and we think this has a chance to help in that. So lead us. We ask for that. In Jesus' name, amen.